Hello, so this video is to demonstrate how you set up a G131 with a swiveling head to grind corners. And of course there are a lot of parallel issues for the 136 and the 135, things that are absolutely identical as we have it on this machine. The first thing that I'm going to show you is how you remove the belt. This is what tensions the belt, simply through a sliding screw here that via this diagonal opening brings this plate forward, and then you can pull the belt off the machine, right? And the very same way it goes back on. And every time you do this, you want to check your belt tension, obviously. And you see on the belt, on the plate, this on the bottom, we have that as a spare part, because sometimes when you adjust the belt too low, it will rub on the plate. And that is the next thing that I'm going to explain to you, how we are going to do this. So, this belt rotates, as you can see, obviously. And then, this is the swiveling head. And here on the bottom, you have a knob on the motor that swivels, and when you turn this, you can make the position for this head, and that helps you also afterwards with the alignment. We'll get to that in a little bit later. So, as you run this belt, you want to take a number 19 wrench, and you are seeing this screw here on the bottom. You want to untie the lock nut, and then by turning this screw forward and backwards, you can adjust the belt. And I'll demonstrate that best with running. So, as the belt is fixed, obviously not put the hand in there. Now you can turn this screw here on the bottom, 90mm wrench, and we can make the belt go up. If we turn it clockwise, the belt will go up. You see it coming up. The metal purposes, right? And if you turn it counterclockwise, looking at it from the bottom of it, you will see the belt come down. And you want to adjust the belt so that you have good clearance against the plate on the bottom. You want to be about a quarter inch away from it. Adjusting the top edge of those contact layers. So now we can turn this back off again. What you see here behind, this is a so-called backing plate. That is replaceable as it wears. If the belt pushes against it, it makes the edge straighter, it makes the radius straighter, and so that you are not freeform grinding. So, that was this. Then you can adjust for your part. And one of the adjustments in here is that you can adjust your height. In order to adjust the height, you have to open up the two locking screws in the back so that this table can slide down or up. And if you do narrower parts, then you can adjust it at different heights of the belt so that you use the entire belt evenly with the abrasive. Okay, and then you can lock this up again. The next thing that you want to adjust is, and I'm not going to open these right now, you can open these two and you can adjust the angle. So if you want to grind something that is at an angle, you can accommodate that. But most people grind something 90 degrees, and you just want to test with a workpiece and make sure that you are nice and parallel against the belt. But the best thing is really, after you have been grinding, to make sure that you have a nice and straight line all the way, as you maybe better demonstrated here. that you have a nice and straight line all the way up, that you're not grinding on one side more than on the other. Then you would adjust just very slightly on the angle of the plate. Now we are getting to some of the adjustments on the inside. As you can see here, we are touching just ever so slightly on either side of the grind. And some people would not like to touch at all, and other people would enjoy basically more grinding around the angle. And the way you adjust, the amplitude of your swing is here. This is the excenter, and again, if I rotate that for you, you see how that makes this whole unit move. So the further we go to the outside, the more swing we have, and the further we go to the inside, the less swing we have. So to the inside would be less than 90 degrees, more to the outside would be 90 degrees. And that you use, and you just hold on to the knob down here, and you crack the limit screw, and then you also have a 5mm wrench where you can turn. So we'll go a little bit, just a tad, a little bit more. We're going to adjust it a little bit more to the inside, less than 90 degrees. So you would open this one up a little bit so that we can slide inside, right? And at the same time, you would bring this screw in a little bit in order to push this pivot point further to the center, and then you secure it again by locking this screw. So that adjusts for your radius. Then we have this rod, and if you look from the top, as you rotate, you can see that we are also slightly moving this rod, and we are moving it more as we are going away from the pivot point, which is right underneath here where you see part of that screw coming out. So if we open up these, we can adjust for radius. So this would be more radius. This would be the most radius actually, because we are far away from the pivot point. And this would be the least radius because we are right on the pivot point. Most, if you want to have around 160 thousandths radius, you want to be slightly below half. Now there is one other thing that we need to pay attention to, and that is the alignment, which we do through this hole, because we can move everything out of alignment. But before I say that, I will explain this. These two screws make your symmetry, and what it is, it determines where the bottom rod that swings the fork back and forth, where that is. So as you move this back, you have more grind to the left, and as you move this forward, you have more grind to the right. And again, you want to find a point where you have nice symmetry between left and right. So if you feel it's grinding a little bit more than on one side than on the other, this is a place where you would adjust that. So in order to find your basic alignment in the beginning, after you have moved some things in here, what you want to do is you want to set your excenter exactly to 12 o'clock, so that these two screws are on 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. Or you could also say, depending on from which way you look, as a camera looks right now, between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. That is in the eye of the beholder. And what this will do is we gave you a hole here, and with the machine we will give you a pin that allows you to align this. And if you are off with your alignment here, you can see how I can move the symmetry of this head right now. You want this to where that pin goes all the way in the bottom, so that this part lines up with this part, lines up with this part, as we are at 12 o'clock. So I have this loose right now, I have this loose right now, and I set my radius to where I want it, and then we are going to tie everything nicely down again. I'm going to use a little bit longer wrench, it's more comfortable. And these are incredibly handy to have when you're working on a machine like this. So, and as you tighten these down, then you have a pretty good basic alignment as to symmetry of the machine. Specifically on the 131, so you see this pin now goes easy in and out, and we should be aligned very good. Specifically on the 131, not on the 135 and on the 136, of course you have your sidearms. And with those sidearms, you can determine where the box sits relative to the head. And as you increase the radius, you need to go further in, because a larger radius will want to have the belt be further to the inside of the part, and a smaller radius, you want to have it further out. So, as you can see here, we also have locks here. Some people never tighten those and always keep them open. Other people keep them just snug. Other people tighten them down after they have found the adjustment. That depends very much on how much you want to adjust. So as you turn this, if you turn it clockwise, as it turns clockwise, it pulls this in, you retract the stop. If you turn counterclockwise, you bring it forward. So as I bring my part out further forward, you can see how it moves away from the belt. But of course it only moves away from the belt on this side. So in order to have symmetry again, you want to line it up with this axis and line it up also on the other side in the same movement as you do on one side. So you can't get this alignment just solely by moving one. You need to move both so that you stay on the center line and at the same time have the correct distance in and out. And that is the whole principle behind that. So we're there, and I do this, just I eyeball it across, and it should be about right here. And that looks very good because we are touching, and that should make a pretty reasonable part. So at that point, like I say, if you want to, you can just snug these down a little bit. Don't be too forceful with that, because that only hurts things, right? So, this lid has a magnetic strip, and this screw was intended to be tied down so that we don't need a safety lock. We do that here, and then we can turn the machine on. On the machine, you have several controls. This is your start-stop for everything. This is grinding belt slow, grinding belt fast, and this is your oscillation on, oscillation off. So, when we have this turned off and this turned on, then you will see that only the belt turns. Then as we turn the oscillation on, then this will come in addition to it. And then we have a well here. This box is a little bit too big for this. So what I'll do first is I'll adjust my table down. There you have your finished result. And You see how straight this line is, which means our table is very well aligned. We don't have any residue here, and this should be a good result. And then you simply turn it off by turning on the red button. You can leave these buttons on their on position. What turns on separately with the machine is your dust collector. Turns on when you turn on the machine. If you ordered this, is the optional dust collector, which right now the hose, because it's a new machine, is still in the cabinet, hooks up to the back of here and underneath here, right here where I have my hand. So you run a line from there into there, and that's your dust collector. You can order replacement filter bags from us also, but they usually last quite a bit of time. Before you start the machine up, or after you have hooked it up to power, you need to check your rotation and make sure that the motor turns the right way. The easiest way is to do that either waiting until the motor turns out, or to take a plastic tie wrap and put it through the fan housing from the bottom and see which way it pulls. And then when we ship the machine, the key that is on the door here, we ship that in here, and you take a pair of needle nose pliers to the outside in order to open it up for the first time. That should conclude an explanation, a thorough explanation on how to operate a G131, and like I say, all the adjustments that we showed you inside of the box are identically the same for a G136, or as we have the larger machine over here, a G135. Only that here we have the head sitting in a diagonal, and in this case the workpiece moves through, and for the 135 the grinding head actually moves through and the workpiece sits there. Thank you very much.